Greetings once again, heroes and villains. Duuz-Diz-Din back again with My Hero Academia, where previously Bakugo, carrying the hopes and wishes and dreams of those who didn't want to see the former symbol of peace perish at the hands of his arch-nemesis, was able to come in and save the day. And in Bakugo's own mind, making up for the fact that it was his capture that led to All Might losing his powers in the first place. It was inevitable, but at least the boy has a sense of closure now. We also had a very controversial, at least in my mind, moment where, while Bakugo and All Might were chilling on a nearby rooftop, remained of Edge Shot, since he essentially used most of his body to stitch up Bakugo's broken organs and bones, because, again, I kept harping on it, boy didn't have a sternum anymore. That thing got obliterated. So he had to have gone beyond Bakugo's organs and his heart. I'm just like, oh, he's stitching up Bakugo's heart. No, he stitched up everything. But, I mean, his heart stopped beating, and as it turns out, a bead of explosive sweat caused the impact in order to get Bakugo's heart pumping again. So essentially, Bakugo was saved by faith, trust, and pixie dust. Which, you might be saying, well, I mean, considering how Bakugo saved All Might, that seems to be the name of the game. I know, but even still, Bakugo saving All Might was a lot more believable than just a stray bead of Bakugo's sweat exploded and helped to get Bakugo's heart pumping yet again. It's just like, you know, you could have left that out and I would have been a lot more fun about Bakugo living. Regardless, All Might entrusts the very last piece of his suit to Bakugo. The part that I knew was eventually going to come, the part that All Might was going to use to kamikaze himself, the great explosion murder god Dynamite gauntlets. Meanwhile, a continuously incensed All For One essentially has to tear himself away from going after All Might because he knows he needs to focus on One For All and Tomura Shigaraki, especially since Tomura is fighting his intervention. So when All For One turns his attention to Tomura, in comes Bakugo, ready to bring it to All For One last time. But with his beaten, broken, and battered body that is literally stitched together, does Bakugo have enough in the tank to get the job done? Join me as I find out, won't you? Alright, we see the events across the various battlefields. Koda helping Shoji into the hospital. Sirius, who I keep forgetting that she's actually in the series. Not to mention, have we seen Selkie? I know he was in the manga, but I don't think we've seen him since the raid on the Paranormal Liberation front. I wonder. But Sirius is helping Gang Orca after they subdued Anomu. I think, okay. It was hard to make out at first, but Aoyama is firing out his naval laser, and Hagakure is using her ability to essentially control that light to cut down the various plants that, Kunaida had essentially encased several heroes in that was sucking them dry. Pause. Ooh. We also see that Ryukyugu and Ojiro are still fighting some darkness dude with an umbrella and top hat? Who the hell is that? Did I call her Ryukyu? Got One Piece on the brain. I'll be reading that after this. We see Hound Dog with the captured Skeptic, along with Miss Joke and Yoshindo. And then we see Kamakiri and Kurohiro helping with the evacuation. I had to look their names up real quick because I'm just like, I don't remember what their names were. And someone just announcing what's going on. The riot at Central Hospital has been suppressed, currently transporting captives and providing triage for the wounded. That's with Shoji and Koda. Okuto Island is under control with Gang Orca and Sirius. The initial location of the Divide and Conquer mission is secure. The injured are being tended to with Aoyama and Hagakure. The battle at National Tokoba Arena is ongoing with Ryukyu and Ojiro. Mr. Skeptic has been captured, transporting him now with Hound Dog, Yoshindo, and Miss Joke. The escape to Shiketsu via the evac system is complete. Heroes are mobilizing to safeguard the refugees from the stalled block. That's the two kids from Class 1B. The Jaku Hospital ruined site is under control. Yeah, but the whereabouts of Kurogiri, Eraserhead, and Present Mic are unknown. Yeah, I keep wondering when we're gonna flash back to that. Because we've dealt with so many other things that I'm like, what happened to Present Mic and Eraserhead? Like, dude. We see Sukuuchi still watching the events unfold on the monitor. We cut to the top of, I think it was Central Hospital that Lady Nagant was sent to. And we see that despite her still using her abilities while still injured, she's still conscious. She remembers Lockrock's words saying, "The full mobilization on our part hinges on our faith in Izuku Midoriya." And Lady Nagant thinks of Izuku. We then cut over to All Might witnessing Bakugo's massive attack on All For One, as All Might looks on in disbelief, saying, "What speed?" The remaining bit of edge shot says, "When facing death, just for a moment, that boy's moves had even Shigaraki flustered," recounting the events of when they were fighting Shigaraki back at the floating UA. Edge shot explains, "He seems to be on the verge of grasping something essential." Yep, growth in the midst of a life or death battle. And we pick up with Bakugo having just used the dynamite gauntlet, as he thinks to himself with a pretty much crazed look in his eyes. Gotta make use of this side effect. More. Again. More. Kid is operating on pure adrenaline at this point. Meanwhile, All For One, who has been slammed into a building several floors down, is picking himself up out of the crater, saying, "Enough of this. You come later." He still wants to focus on Tomura. We then pick up with the battle against Tomura and Deku, as Shigaraki says, "See that? I'll destroy your hold on me again and again," he says as he breaks through Black Whip. Deku thinks to himself, "I'm keeping my distance while the force danger sense is somehow keeping me alive. But how to deal with a superpowered body that can regenerate and inflict instant death? I haven't come up with an answer yet." Yeah, talk about being in a tricky situation. The next time I use the second gear shift will be my last. Doesn't matter how long it's active, even. As soon as it ends, the blowback will leave me immobilized. Dang. So this final activation had better count. Deku activates gear shift, saying, "It ends here," as we have the two final face-offs. Deku versus Shigaraki. Bakugo versus All For One. As Deku thinks, "Go beyond." Some pretty awesome imagery here. Like, dang. I don't know, man. I'd feel better about Bakugo being back in the fight if at the very least Recovery Girl had popped up and healed him a little bit. I'd be like, okay. Like, that's the only thing that's just in my craw about this. Like, I don't care how you got stitched up, kid. Then again, I've seen other stuff that I think of Doflamingo stitching his internal organs back, and I'm like, that shouldn't work that way. No. My suspension of disbelief is a little, just ain't allowing me to accept that. I'm still having that same problem here, but let's just say that Bakugo's going to be out of commission for a good long time after this is done. Oh, okay, that's what it was. You see something moving just vertically through all these buildings away from Bakugo. It's All For One. He's trying to get to Shigaraki. Bakugo shouts, "Still at it, you filler character?" Dang, that's just rude. And Bakugo thinks, "Beyond, like zipping past me?" Yeah, go beyond Bakugo, just in a lateral sense. And as All For One races towards Shigaraki, he thinks to himself, Endeavor and Dark Shadow packed more of a punch than he does. Yes, he can wait. Oh, dang. Again, ups to Tokoyami. Like, big ups to Tokoyami and his abilities. All For One thinks he can hardly measure up to All Might. He's not worth advancing my rewound state. He's pointless. Our fates are not intertwined. A mere pebble in my path. He's nothing. I'm just realizing the state that All For One is in. It's so easy to get under his skin. And who's better at mocking and getting under someone's skin than Bakugo? The obsession with the narratives of characters, bit part, filler characters, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, this is a matchup. Meanwhile, we cut to inside Bakugo's head, where he's thinking, I figured it out. It's the pain. The pain as the beads of sweat stored up in my palms shoot through my whole body. The pain as they explode, the locations, the intervals. The pain gives me a handle on the timing of those backup blasts. So is he saying like the pain and the sensation of everything that's going on has made him acutely aware of how he needs to apply his powers to get the most out of them? Is that what he's saying? Jeez. It's so wild. I'm gonna love seeing this animated. Because as you see All For One just making this beeline, Bakugo's exploding with the precision he needs to straight up catch up to All For One. And man, Bakugo just has this crazed look at his face. Because he hits the ground hard. He is just rolling on the ground. Like, this kid is just ragdolling his way to success. Jesus. All For One turns, thinking to himself, what now? But Bakugo hits the ground hard, then smashes into a wall as he says, youch, fast, too fast, can't stop. God damn. This kid, and All For One just thinks, what's wrong with him? And despite this, as Bakugo remembers his words, so Izuku, can I still catch up to you? Bakugo blasts his way through that wall, and on the other side of the glass of this building, All For One spots Bakugo. Just despite what's going on, he is still maintaining his momentum. This is insanity. You know what? This is helping me get past the ridiculousness of it. Bakugo, he's just tearing his body and his way to victory. As Bakugo thinks, for some reason I feel like I could overtake you now. Meanwhile, back at one of the shelters, Bakugo's mom pats the dad on the shoulder saying, honey, look, it's Katsuki. The dad says, no, I can't bear to watch. Given who he's up against, the mom says, you have to watch, cause I just know that boy of ours is grinning the way he always does. Yeah, that very sadistic looking grin. And as All For One locks eyes with Bakugo, he remembers the second user of One For All. The one that a lot of people said might be like Bakugo in the future, or just had a very similar resemblance to Bakugo. I guess Horikoshi's using that, or maybe it was intentional from the start. As All For One thinks, what is it about this insignificant pebble that vexes me even more than All Might does? Of course, the resemblance. As he thinks of the second user, All For One thinks back to the moment where he was about to kill the second user, holding the second by the throat, ready to end him, as the second says, Yoichi? He's gone, Demon Lord. You killed him. You know, do we actually know how All For One's brother died? Was it just that All For One killed him? Or was it like a mistake? Or just was it the result of the stockpile? That we know that, you know, users don't really live that long when they have a pre-existing quirk. All For One thinks, the hatred I harbor brings back the memories so vividly. Right, it's him. It was always him. If only he hadn't reached out like that. He thinks of when the second user took All For One's brother's hand. And he thinks of when Bakugo took Deku's hand when they were coming at each other, and Deku flung Bakugo to save All Might. He's having these flashbacks because of these interlocking moments, and suddenly Bakugo just lets off this burst of explosive power that knocks back All For One, as All For One thinks, the one I loathe above all others. All For One hits a building. Bakugo is sent just bouncing off of the ground. And a burning All For One shouts out, you're to blame for it all, Kudo. Kudo, is that the second user's actual name? And Bakugo just finally gone senile, bub. That's Kachan Bakugo. To you, ya grade A moron. You know, I'm curious now. Is this the first time that Bakugo has ever referred to himself by the nickname that Deku gave him? Kachan? I can't remember. I also do wonder, is there maybe some relation between the second user that we know known as Kudo and Bakugo? I mean, could be. You never know. a distant relation, something offhanded. And now knowing that, what was it, Gaten, the ice villain from the Liberation Front, having a distant relation to Shoto's mom is actually interesting, but it makes a lot of sense. You know, the desperation and all that, so you never know. And now we pretty much know every user except the third user of One for All's name. But yeah, finding out that All for One killed his brother. I mean, it's not a surprise, but it's just actually hearing it. It's just like, oh, I'm just curious about the circumstances of how it happened. Because knowing that the second and third user were these freedom fighters who were battling against All for One, we know that they freed the brother. But what happened to the brother after that? Was it just in the attempt to escape, All for One killed his brother? Or was it more to it than that? I'm very curious. And yeah, Bakugo fully operating on pure adrenaline. Every movement, every sensation, every application of his quirk, he's using the pain from literally using it to just understand better ways to utilize it, probably to put himself in less pain. Oh my god, that is utter insanity, and I kind of love it. Like, now, like, going from that angle, I actually kind of love it. It's just the pure insanity of how Bakugo is using his abilities, because it's like, and Shot telling him is just like, you should be lying down. Your body is not healed, it's being held together. And then you got to Bakugo just blasting his way across the city, bouncing off the floor, bouncing through walls, bouncing off guardrails. It's just like, bruh. Kid's gonna be lucky if he can freaking move within the next 6 months. Like, God. This kid's gonna have scars all across his body. Then again, everything going on during the course of this war is gonna leave everybody pretty scarred. It's a situation where if you're from class 1A and you don't come out of this fight with some kind of scarring, you're either lucky or you weren't fighting right. But man, it's fully dawning on me that All for One and Bakugo are essentially the same person to a certain degree. People who are obsessed with this meta-narrative of the events going on. Bakugo referring to All for One as a filler character, All for One referring to Bakugo as a pebble, just treating each other as they're insignificant, and just the mental state going on between the two of them is fascinating. It just never dawned on me just how similar they are to a certain degree and how their mindsets operate. From a certain perspective, you could almost say that Bakugo could have been All for One in another life. You know, not to the same degree, because, you know, because of All for One's abilities, he was able to orchestrate so many things. And the idea of having two quirks that don't seem too related, it's not uncommon. Just think of Todoroki. Produces ice, produces fire. You wouldn't think there would be two things you could do at the same time, and yet there he is. That's, I think, why so many people were willing to accept that Deku had more than one ability when Black Whip came about. But once Float came into the picture, it's just like, okay, something's not right here. It's like, it's gonna be hard to explain why this kid also has the ability to float in midair. I honestly did not think that Bakugo would be the one facing off against All for One, but I'm interested to see where it goes. It's really getting fun. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. What was the most interesting part of this chapter for you? Also remember to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride, and until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye.